Hello, and welcome to my presentation on the Native American culture. I'd like to start by pointing out that the jewelry I'm currently wearing was handmade by Native Americans descended from the Iroquois Nation. Both of these pieces have been carved from bone and are representative of what Native Americans would have made for themselves prior to the introduction of glass trading beads by the Europeans, which is probably the type of jewelry you're accustomed to seeing. You may be surprised to find out that Native Americans as a group comprise the greatest number of ethnic groups of any minority population in the United States. Each of the approximately 400 American Indian and Alaska Native nations has its own distinct cultural heritage. About half of the groups live in rural areas, either on government reservations or on nearby farms. The ethnic identity varies from tenacious maintenance of heritage to total adoption of the majority culture. But for the most part, Native Americans have never fully assimilated into the majority American culture. Traditional Native American foods are major contributors to the American diet. We eat them every day: corn, squash, beans, cranberries, and maple syrup, to name a few. The diet of Native Americans has changed dramatically from its origins, however, as they have assimilated into the majority American culture with all of its processed and fast foods. Fortunately, there has been a renewed interest in preserving the Native American way of life in recent years, and this has prevented the complete disappearance of many of their traditional foods and food habits. The history of Native Americans suggests that 20 to 50,000 years ago, the ancestors of Native Americans crossed the Bering Strait from Asia. Three major centers of culture developed from these migrations. In the southeast, the 5 civilized tribes; in New York, the Iroquois nations; and in the southwest, the Pueblo communities. The introduction of horses, firearms, and metal knives, of course, changed the lifestyles of many Native American nations. I'm sure you're already familiar with the history of how most Native American tribes were displaced from their lands and relocated to reservations by the westward movement and growth of our nation from European immigration. By the year 2000, however, approximately 2/3 of all American Indians and Alaska Natives resided in farms, towns, and urban areas outside of the reservations. Even with this trend away from the reservations, however, the overall poverty rate for Native Americans in 2008 more than doubled that of the general population. It is also notable that for the most part, Native Americans, as I said previously, have never completely assimilated into the majority American culture. Harmony best describes the Native American approach to life. Each individual strives to maintain a balance among spiritual, social, and physical needs in a holistic approach. Religion varies from an uncomplicated belief in the power of a great spirit or creator to elaborate theological systems with organized hierarchies of priests. Regardless of these variations, religion tends to permeate all aspects of life. Traditional health beliefs and practices include the view that health and illness are a reflection of a person's relationship to nature, and treatments are attempts to correct the cause of that imbalance. Traditional healers and traditional techniques may be used either instead of or along with biomedical treatments. The traditional food habits across the different areas were influenced mainly by geography and climate. Food acquisition systems included hunters and gatherers, as well as agricultural societies. Throughout North America, corn, or maize, was a primary core grain. Maize was commonly grown with beans and squash, and the three together were referred to as the Three Sisters. Within different regions, natural resources formed the basis of the regional variations for the traditional diets associated with each tribe. The Europeans introduced many foods that are now common too. These new foods included various fruits, vegetables, and animals. The long cold winters, relative lack of plant-based foods, and steady availability of fish, whales, and other game influenced the Northwest Coast and Alaska Natives' foodways. The 5 major regions, the Northeast, Southern, Plains, Southwestern, and Northwest Coast, and Alaska Natives, and others, all share similarities, but they also have distinctive food habits of their own. Typically, the pattern of daily meals varied by ethnic group and locality. Foods were often monotonous, with only seasonal variations. Feasting was typically associated with religious ceremonies. Food was valued as a sacred, precious resource, and many plant foods were used medicinally to treat both spiritual and physical health. In the contemporary world, Native Americans are undergoing changing ethnic identity, acculturation, and loss of traditional languages and traditional practices. Many Native Americans participate in both traditional Native American societies and white society. Over the years, many of the traditional foods and methods of preparation have been lost, and a variety of substitutions are currently made to recreate the traditional diet. Many Native Americans have an inadequate diet due to low socioeconomic status or lack of transportation, fuel, refrigeration, or even running water. However, recent changes suggest that Native Americans have now transitioned from conditions of underconsumption to diseases associated with overconsumption, much like the rest of us in this country. I have chosen to begin my presentation with an overview of Native American culture in general. Following the overview, however, I have included a section that focuses specifically on the Tohono O'odham Nation of Arizona. My friend Shelley Clark, who taught the cultural nutrition class here at Mansfield University for several years, first introduced me to these people, and I have continued to study them with interest. I hope you enjoy this presentation about the Native American people and their food and health habits in particular. Please make certain to view the presentation in full screen slideshow mode for best results.